Hello and welcome to Charter Local Edition Northwest in Medford, Oregon. I'm Dana Cowley, your host, and my guest today is our Republican Representative, Sal Esquivel. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for being here.
Now, when I first moved to Eugene in the early 80s and started covering news, people were talking about Oregon's tax structure, and it's really been a topic of discussion ever since, and you've got some ideas to reorganize that a bit.
Well, I was on revenue restructuring when I was in the Senate 13 years ago, and I've thought about that for quite some time, of how would be the best way to approach it. Inevitably, every sales tax that's come up in the past has always been an add-on. So therefore, people reject it. In fact, they take pride in the fact that we don't have a sales tax. We take pride in it.
Yes. And it's one of the claims to fame Oregon has nationwide. Nationwide, people know that.
But I'm thinking that if we put things in the Constitution, so one, that you, the people, are the only ones that can change it. Therefore, it's cast in stone. The other thing that I'm looking at is when we're all retired, why do we have to pay rent to the government to live in our house? That's in property taxes. So why don't we work on doing away with people's property tax instead of worrying about the sales tax part of it? And what my proposal is this, that doing away with the property tax, do away with all property taxes of an assessment of $500,000 and below, and tie that to a CPI index so it increments up according to inflation. And therefore, if your house is worth $200,000 or $300,000, then of course you pay no taxes. If your house is worth $1 million, then you pay half your taxes. So, and it's just for your residents only. Now, in order to achieve that, and in order to compensate for that, my proposal would be to have a 4.5% sales tax in the Constitution so it could not be moved. The exclusions on that sales tax would be food, medical, and clothing. So therefore, it doesn't hurt anyone that has the necessities of life, but it does tax you for luxury items. So you'd have to spend approximately, if you had a $300,000 house, you'd have to spend approximately about $60,000 in luxury items in order not to come out on it. So it's pretty good.
Well, 4.5% is relatively low for a sales tax too, say compared to Washington is almost double that.
Right. But the other thing that we need to do is we need to preempt local people from adding on to that sales tax in the Constitution. So therefore, it's pretty bulletproof. It'll stay at 4.5%. See, that's the problem in California. They started with 3%, now they're up to 8, 10, 12%, depending upon where you're at and what counties and cities and municipalities add on to that. So we have that in place. We'd put it into a fund that we would send the money back to the counties for their loss of their revenue from property taxes. And then the rest of the money, which there would be an excess, the first biennium, I think it's $1.5 billion, would go back and revert back into the general fund. I would want to earmark that in the Constitution again, for half of it for education, the other half for the Oregon State Police Department, until they get to the acquired number of average troopers per 1,000 people. Once they attain that, then it would start dumping back into the general fund and into the education department. So if you are a senior citizen on a fixed income, wouldn't it be nice to be able not to have to pay property taxes? And then the only time you pay a tax.
That's been a concern for seniors for a long time. Some people get put right out of their homes, and it's just heartbreaking.
That. I'm a realtor, and I've seen that. And that's heartbreaking when elderly people have to sell their house because they can't pay for their property taxes. The sad part about it is that people hear sales tax and immediately their ears melt shut and their brain goes in neutral because they don't want to talk about it, because it's a pride in Oregon. But we need to get past that, and we need to talk about how we can ensure that, one, the political process in Portland and Salem can't change it. And the only way you can do that is the Constitution, because if you put this in the Constitution, then it would definitely never be changed without a vote of the people. The other concern was, well, what about the internet? Well, you can't charge a sales tax on the internet. So I think I've covered the bases.
That's consistent from state to state.
Right.
Sal, thank you so much for joining us and explaining these things to us.
Thanks for having me.
We wish you the best of luck with your efforts in Salem coming up. And we thank you for watching. I'm Dana Cowley, and this is Charter Local Edition Northwest.